Joshua Hanlon here at Bricks Cascade in Portland, Oregon, and today we're taking a look at the massive Ewok Adventure Land build behind me here. So we've got several of the builders who are involved in this project, starting with Boone Langston. You know him, you love him. So Boone, why don't you give us an overview of what this is?
Yeah, this is called Ewok Adventure Land. I wanted to build roller coasters in the trees. And I had that idea for a while, and in the end, I'm like, oh, what if it's the Ewoks? Because they've got all the trees, right? And so this is, the imagination here is that this is after the Battle of Endor. All of this Imperial machinery junk is left over from the battle. And the Ewoks have taken that technology and turned it into a theme park for the galaxy's vacationers to come and visit.
So why don't you take us through some of the sections you worked on, and then we'll get some of the other builders in here and they can point out what they did.
Yeah, okay, so so basically my main focuses were the roller coaster and the monorail. And a couple of things that I've done here is I've got the vertical lift roller coaster there, and that was literally just to solve the problem of the 45-degree track only comes in red. We didn't want red track for this. We wanted gray so that it matched with the very Star Wars looking technology. And so we needed either a way to hide the red track. So our original idea was to have a tree falling at 45 degrees and put the red track behind it. And then I thought, you know what? What if we just like lift that roller coaster up in the air and then let it drop down? And so that's how this thing works. And then the monorail. One of the things that I've really been interested in doing with monorail for a while is sort of this spiral where the monorail track turns around upon itself, and people have seen that before. It's not like it hasn't been done before, but I'd never tried it. And so you can see the monorail doing that right now, where it raises up an entire level using only curved monorail track, and then it kind of keeps ascending into the trees with some sloped tracks. And we've got a switch track at each end with a loop, so this monorail goes back and forth on the loop without ever changing direction. So the front of the monorail is always the front, and the people having fun in the back of the monorail are always in the back, and yet it continues to go back and forth around and around on that loop.
And it's fantastic. It adds so much movement that people can stand here and watch and be entertained at the show.
Absolutely, yeah. And I built these big trees. I wanted some trees that were as tall as I wanted the coaster to be, and some, the coaster and the monorail track are sort of supported by trees and tree trunks and whatnot. I just thought that would be really cool. And then some of this sort of whole front section that you see here with the spinning ride, the Ferris wheel. Perry built all of this stuff, and we had a lot of fun sort of deciding what ideas we were going to use down here.
Perfect. And let's get Perry in here, and you can give us some insight into the front section.
All right, terrific. So I'm Perry Wang. I helped Boone with this one, and we started about summer, and I decided to take on the front. Originally, it was just 2 rides, and Boone was going to do the rest, and as time moved on, I was like, oh, Boone's not going to do the rest. I better do the landscaping and everything and figure out where everything should go. So we were really inspired by Disneyland, right? So Disneyland has that kind of central entryway. It had a bit of a main street, and it has this statue, which is an homage to Walt Disney, and he's holding Mickey Mouse's hand. So C-3PO, being who he is to the Ewoks, we knew we needed to do an homage to C-3PO. So a lot of people ask what that is. It's a flashlight. It's a flashlight that happens to fit right in there next to the Ewok. The other thing that I built is this big TIE Fighter Ferris wheel. Right, so the whole side of it is a TIE Fighter wing with AT-AT legs. The only C-3PO in the build is at the base of it, and he's got a couple of photographers and somebody fanboying over him right there. And the pods that ride along this Ferris wheel are inspired by the different TIE Fighter pods that LEGO's released over the years. So there's a bunch of the classic ones, as well as one that's from Force Awakens, the red and the black one. And then moving over to the probe droid spinner. So we saw a set that really just screamed to us, probe droid. So I thought, I wonder if we could build a probe droid out of that, and I wonder if we can get the speeder bikes to lift off of it. So we have speeder bikes, they're flying around, and as it speeds up, which is about to happen, real soon it goes fast, super duper fast, like sickeningly fast. It was Boone's idea to slow it down so you could appreciate the figures, and you could see one of them, this hat's blowing off with one of those new posing pieces that comes with the new DC superheroes. That was Sam Wildflower's idea to do that, which I thought was brilliant. And all the characters are sitting around on the outside. They're all on vacations, no weapons allowed. Everyone's on a big truce just to hang out, enjoy. So they have hats on, they have cups, they have, ice cream and candy. What else we got? We got an ATST. That's water. Its feet are stuck in the water. We put some plates underneath the water, so you can it kind of looks like his feet are there under that water. And then let's see what else we got. We wanted a focal point up at the top, the way that at Disneyland there's a castle. So there's a focal point, which is a monster that's been left behind that they dug up on Endor. Let's see. And then from there, we also had Mark help out with the trees, putting in a little detail. Sam was a huge help adding in the minifigures and some of the humor that you see there. They definitely helped. And we came up with a brand new word. You know what greebling is, which is to add little mechanical things. We came up with the word greenbling, which is to add trees.
Or treebling.
Treebling. Treebling is maybe better, yeah.
Treebling rolls off the tongue a little better.
And then I will turn it over to these two gentlemen to talk about the sign.
Great. So yeah, the sign is the last part we haven't talked about. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, then we'll take a look.
Sure. I'm Flynn DeMarco.
And I'm Richard Board.
And so we, when we got back from filming that show thing that we were doing, Boone said he was interested in doing a collaboration, and he said, we've got this idea for this theme park. We'd really like to have y'all make the sign for it. And his two directives were, one, that you should be able to see it from across the room, and the other one was that the Las Vegas sign was sort of the inspiration for that. So we kind of started doing a little bit of research, looking at old signs, especially the stuff from Vegas. There was always, a piece that was spinning around with an extra thing on the top of it, like just lots of unnecessary stuff. So we decided to do lots of that. So for the main part of our sign, for the Adventureland part, we decided to use some of the leftover text. So you can see we have ATST legs on the outside framing and AT-AT legs for the upper and underneath.
But they're a little rusty and moss covered now as well. They've been around for a while.
Right, and we've got, and definitely we got some parts of the ATST head there, right there on the top and the bottom. And we've got 14 sort of flickering LED lights to use as torches, because those Vegas signs always have all those lights, and we figured the Ewoks would definitely be using torches. And then we decided, you can see with the letters, we've just used all kinds of Technic parts, basically anything that we could find cobbled together to make the letters, lots of hoses and wires and things like that. And we've got our two speeder bikes as decorations, because they need a little flare there on the side. And then we move up to the top part. We decided to do a very almost kind of like Flintstones, Disneyland, Adventureland type of deal, and have everything look like real natural as opposed to all the machine parts below.
And what's on the very top?
And then at the very top we have the Forest Moon of Endor that came with the little like micro ATST inside of it. So that was kind of the sort of star on top of the tree type of deal.
So how did you guys get that moving part section on top, and how does that incorporate into the main Adventureland sign?
So we have an 8x8 column, two 8x8 columns on either side, and on the very top of the left-hand side, we just have a very small, simple gearbox. We used a worm gear to slow it down. It's got an axle going up the middle, and it just spins around. It's actually super simple to use, and I think we just used a straight up power functions motor, isn't that right?
And it's controlled with a train controller to slow it down further.
Yeah, so that way we can have, and it was actually, it was like it's a pretty heavy sign. And so
15 pounds maybe on top of those trees.
So we were lucky enough to have a magical angel come out of nowhere and build these amazing braces for our sign. to hold it up. And
They go up inside the 8x8 columns, and then a zip screw goes in through a Technic hole in the back of it so that it doesn't fall over and smash all of Endor.
And I think that's the true essence of being at a con and working in the Lego community, is that people jump in to help you out when you really need something, which I think is great.
This has been such an awesome collaboration. Richard and Flynn built a beautiful sign, and yet I hadn't prepared my trees to be strong enough to support it. So Mike Johnson, a wonderful woodworker, and with a lot of help from his wife Sarah, they built this structure to provide support, because we could not. Richard and Flynn's sign was just so glorious and so amazing, and so wonderfully captured, the image that I was, hoping for, that we couldn't imagine just like setting it next to the build, or worse, not including it in the build. And so we really thank Mike and Sarah for helping us out there.
Yeah, they did an amazing, incredible job.
Well, great work, guys. So then as you guys were kind of planning out the build, as all of you kind of discussed the different sections, that sort of thing, what was that process like as you kind of figured out what it would look like?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Very early on, I just started talking about, actually Perry and I sat down for dinner, and we just took out a notebook and said, okay, what are we going to do? And we were like, oh, we got to have like the Ferris wheel with the giant TIE fighter wing, as the side of the Ferris wheel. And wouldn't it be fun to have like speeder bikes zipping around, and then we were like, oh, how that thing where Walt Disney stands in the middle of Disneyland holding Mickey Mouse's hand? It'd be hilarious if it was C-3PO, because the Ewoks think he's a god, and so we're just having these conversations, and then I get distracted for a couple of months with a big project with these guys over here, and Perry just starts building. So then all of a sudden I see Perry's got the Ferris wheel done, and then all of a sudden Perry's sending me text messages because he's got pictures of the probe droid spinner is done, and then he just starts sending me pictures of like he's got what is it, 48 by 48? No, it's eight
48 by 48s. That's right. Yeah. So I started building those because I'm like, Boone's gone doing stuff. Like, I don't know where he is.
I don't have time to wait for Boone. You just
right. So I think I should start maybe building, but it was building the way that a bridge builder is building a bridge from one side of the river, hoping that somebody else is building on the other side of the river, and that he'll meet me. So out of an abundance of caution, I'm like, hey, Boone, just so you know, here's where I'll be when my bridge comes to the halfway point over the river. So I started sending him information that I'm sure he only read like half of. And then we eventually took all of that, and I took my sections, which are the forward 8 base plates, took it to his garage, and I gave him plenty of time, which was about 2 weeks. He did the actual work in about a day and a half.
Yeah, I did all the work in like the last 48 hours of those 2 weeks. And it didn't, the thing is, it didn't end up being as finished when I drove it down here to the convention center as I'd hoped it would be. But
despite your best 48 hours of work.
Despite my best 48 hours of work. Which, compared to 12 hours or 15 hours, 48 hours sounds like a lot of time. But we just had such fun with this collaboration, and everyone got here and pitched in, and we were able to rebuild the sections that broke when I moved it to my car. And I think, the detailing on Perry's section is just beautiful. The detailing on the sign is beautiful. I'm pleased with the functionality of, the parts that I was able to contribute to the build. And I think all in all, we came up with something that a lot of kids and adults have just really enjoyed spending a lot of time looking at this weekend.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for taking us through the layout and giving us that behind-the-scenes look. Keep up the good work.
One last thing I should say is that Kyle, what's Kyle's last name? Kyle Donovan? Kyle Smith? Is it both? Anyway, Kyle dropped by and added one thing to our build. It's a trap.
It's the finishing touch. It needed.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you.